When I think about video games and I think about where we're at in 2012, I'm always reminded of that moment in Silent Hill where you've made your way into the town and you're starting to explore the town, and you know that there's some weird shit going on, you know, stuff's kind of creeping around in the shadows. And you decide, I'm out of here. So you start to follow a road out of the town, and you hit the end of the road, and you don't just hit a dead end, you hit the literal end of the road. The road has been destroyed, and all that you find there is a kind of chasm going into nowhere. And I think about Silent Hill a lot when I'm thinking more broadly about video games, because, you know, we're at the end of a hardware cycle. We've had, you know, the current, you know, next generation consoles for a long time, and there's a real sense of fatigue. There's a real sense that a status quo has kind of been established, and people are looking for alternatives. They're looking for different ways of working, different ways of thinking about video games. They're no longer satisfied with the standard kind of hype cycle, the standard, you know, kind of message that's put out by the publishing community. And I think that something like LA Game Space, you know, an environment that's both a gallery and a development space and a testing space and a talking space, I think that contributes something really positive and really effective into where we're at in 2012, because, you know, the mainstream games industry has had an opportunity to come up with new solutions, new ways of thinking about video games. And for the past few years, there's been very, very little thrown into the mix to help us to think about what is a video game, and what are we doing when we make video games. And I think that Dan and Adam's plan to put together LA Game Space provides a real example of the kind of creative thinking that's required to take games, not just games in the arty indie world, but games more broadly into the next phase of their development. Over the past 10 years, we've seen the indie development community grow and grow. And I think there are some really, really top practitioners now working in independent games, creating really original and interesting work. But as with artists, indie developers need opportunities that go beyond just making another game and selling that game online in order to kind of explore their practice and think about the medium. As artists, indie developers need spaces to exhibit their games and show their work and really kind of like try and reach new audiences through the way in which they demonstrate and show their work. And I think LA Game Space is really well timed as a concept, because you've got a number of practitioners in independent game development who are hitting, you know, their mid-30s, they're thinking about what they're doing, they're thinking about what the next step is. And on the one hand, we can, you know, all be busily doing what we're doing in our various studios around the world, or we can start to think more collectively. And I think LA Game Space encourages that collective thought on one level, but then it goes a step further and creates a space for that collective of independent developers to actually exhibit and show their work. And I think that that is a really, really powerful opportunity for developers to take their work to the next level. When you support the Kickstarter campaign, you get 30 games for a minimum of $15, which is incredibly good value. But I think a better way to think about it is that when you contribute to the Kickstarter campaign and you provide some of those essential funds for LA Game Space, you're creating a resource that will produce interesting, exciting games for years to come.